Good day, I'm Dr. Gary E, and today on Psle Science, we'll be talking about environment and evolution. So here we have the diagram that shows some banana plants. So here we can see that the parent plant and the young plants are all very close together. This is quite unnatural because most plants seek to disperse their seeds so that the young plants will be as far away from the parent plant as possible to reduce the drain on resources. If all of them are in a concentrated place, they're all essentially competing with each other for resources. So the first question addresses this. Why does the young plant go so close to the parent plant? The edible banana, like the Cavendish and the plantain, are all mutants, sterile mutants. Those little black dots you see in the banana, you peel it open and tear it in half, those are meant to be seeds. In wild banana, the banana seeds are so strong that they will literally crack your teeth if you try to eat them. So this means that edible bananas do not have the ability to replicate through their seeds. Their seeds are sterile, and in fact, we call them vestigial. That means they are not actually functional as seeds anymore. So how do they reproduce then? How do they replicate? So they do so by what we call asexual reproduction, or another term that they can use is vegetative reproduction. So in this case of a banana, they reproduce by underground stems called suckers. So all the daughter plants are being born in close proximity to the parent plant because they are born from an offshoot of the parent plant. In which part of the plant is the excess sugar produced during photosynthesis stored? So in this case, it's stored in the fruit. This is not always so. Some plants store them underground in a tuber, a root, or even the stem, like sugarcane. Name another plant that reproduces in the same way as the banana plant. So sugarcane can be replicated through vegetative propagation. The apple and elm tree very specifically replicates through suckers, just like the banana plant. So here's another one that's close to the heart of many people. The Environmental Ministry is concerned that polluted water is being washed into the rivers as shown below. So the first question is, on the picture above, mark with a cross X, the location environmental officers must collect and test samples from to check if pollution has indeed been washed into the rivers. So here, they must take this water to test, and of course, they must also test against water upstream, right? Which I have not marked because that's not part of the question. So here we'll see if there's pollution. Upstream, we'll see what the water normally looks like. So anywhere upstream will do, but here downstream of the factory or whatever facility this may be, is where you have to collect your water. In order to test the level of pollution, environmental officers took samples of river water from various locations and poured them into similar beakers. Substance P was then added to the same beaker. Substance P will change color depending on the level of pollution. So basically something like an indicator. Take two variables the officers must keep the same to ensure a fair test. So the simplest ones are that the water must be the same distance as the location so that it doesn't dilute out. And the other is that they must use the same amount of water so they can see the correct concentration. Other things they have to use, of course, is that they have to ensure that the same amount of substance P is added. Otherwise, you can see a very strong blue color in one and a very faded color in another. How will polluted water affect the survivability of submerged plants in a river? Negatively, that's the one-word answer. But basically, there are many different kinds of pollution. Heavy metal contamination, chemical pollution, plastic pollution, even runoff can be very dangerous. If, let's say it's something like, for example, an industrial-sized chicken farm. Even if you have fertilizers or animal feces being put into the water, even if in theory it would sustain vegetable life, it's actually very, very dangerous and very, very harmful for the submerged plants. For example, if you have fertilizers, especially phosphorus-rich fertilizers, what you get is what we call an algal bloom. Basically, algae, very tiny plants, well, not technically plants. Some people call them procoptis, some call it archaeobacteria, but very tiny, tiny photosynthetic organisms will go out of control. They consume all the oxygen in the water when they're not photosynthesizing. All other organisms die for lack of oxygen in the water. So in the ocean, this sometimes happens. We call it a red tide. So heavy metal contamination, of course, kills the plants. So do most chemicals. Some of them, for example, might change the level of acidity or alkalinity so that plants can no longer live in the water. Some, for example, change the salinity. Too much salt. The plant cannot cannot keep its osmotic level and the plant simply outright dies. Some of them have very exotic effects. They are metabolic poisons. Some of them, even plastic, can coat the plant and prevent it from absorbing water efficiently. So to sum it up, it generally will have very bad effects on the survivability of the plants, and in time, will probably kill them. In some cases, quite rapidly. Okay, that's all for today. So see you next time on KRTC Science.